And I'm with Dale King. Today is March 20th, and we're going to be talking about rawhide braiding.
Rawhide and leather.
And leather. Yeah. Mr. King, can you tell us when you first learned your skill?
Well, I was about 8 years old. I had a grandfather on both sides of the family that did a little braiding, and we lived on farms and ranches and up in Utah. We had to make our own equipment. I started by making whips for the farm animal, for the teams that we worked on the farm. My grandfather taught me how to do that one day at noon, and that it took. I've been doing it ever since. When we started, when I started to do this, leather was not that available, but most of the fellows wore laced high-top boots. They were about 18 inches, 16 to 18 inches high. And when we get a pair of old wore-out boots, we take the sides and cut them out, and then cut around them to get our strings, a continuous string. And then we'd braid them into whips and bridle reins and whatever. And if that wasn't available, you could always find a few pieces of twine string to braid. I braided everything I could get a hold of when I was young like that, and some things I braided that I shouldn't have got a hold of.
Like what?
Oh, like a good pair of boots one time.
Why was it that leather wasn't available?
Well, the leather tanned leather was not available because of the cost. The only ones that had it was saddle makers and shoemakers. So we would, if we had killed a beef or something like that, we would hang the hide, stretch it, strip it into strips about an inch thick, by going around the outside or else starting from the inside. We'd put them in a frame lots of times of green hide, and after they got seasoned a little bit or would stiffen up a bit, we'd go into the center of it and cut out a circle, maybe a foot diameter, and then start with pocket knife and cut our strings from the inside out. Go around and around and around, maybe cut them an inch thick. And then we'd take the rawhide and string it out on the fence, stretch it, and let it dry. And as we had a little time, we'd go back with our pocket knife and scratch the hair off it. And maybe that rawhide would stay there for 6 months, stretched out off the top of the fence. Barbed wire fence or anything, it didn't make a difference as long as we could get it tight so it would straighten out. And we'd go back if we wanted to braid something and cut out 15, 18-foot strips of that, and then start seasoning it with moisture. Or if it was rainy, that was a good time. It would get flexible. And that's when we would braid rawhide. And like I say, both my granddads were braiders, in a sense, make their own equipment. And I just followed along in their footsteps, I guess. I liked it and I did it. But anyway, that's how I started.
Was it something that you did out of necessity to get the tack that you needed at that time?
Yes, that and the love of braiding. The love of braiding, I just liked it, I guess. And I was able to do some pretty good work when I was even a young kid. If I wanted to learn anything else, I'd go to one of them and say, hey, I saw a piece, somebody had a piece, had this kind of a knot tied on it. Can you tie that kind of? Yeah, I can tie it. Well, show me how. Well, they'd show me how, and it'd stay with me.
How did they learn?
Just like I did, I guess, from the old timers. My grandfather King, his great-grandfather was, or my great-grandfather came to Salt Lake Valley when he was 8 years old, and he drove an ox team from Nauvoo, Missouri. And he had a brother that was a stock tender on that trip. He took care of the stock at night. He'd sleep in the daytime, or supposedly, but he'd be slept up in the back of one of the old wagons, and he did a lot of braiding in his time off from herding cows at night, watching the cattle at night. Anyway, that's where he started, and it was just passed on from one to another. But it's something that I've always liked. It's something that I did as a pastime, as a hobby, and I just, after I retired, I got back to where I couldn't do anything else, so I just did it do it as a hobby today, and I have done it that way.
And how old were you when you learned it first?
Oh, about 8 years old.
And how long did it take you to learn?
Well, this is something you don't learn in a day or a week or a month or a year. It piles up on you as you go along. The more you do, the more you learn. You learn techniques as you go. You create your own. You see somebody else doing something that you think, oh, maybe I can do that. This is a little better than my stuff. So you steal a few ideas off of them. It's just like an automobile mechanic. He doesn't learn everything he knows out of a book. It's experience. I've taught these classes, and people would think, well, gee, I've been taking a class here for 2 weeks, and I've only done this little bit of stuff. Why can't I do better? I tell them, well, you learn to crawl before you walk, you know? It's one of those things. It isn't something you learn overnight. It's experience. I don't care what you do. This is hands-on experience is the best teacher.
Are you still learning new techniques? And
yes, I pick up techniques all the time. I create my own a lot of times. It isn't what if I see something and I don't know how it's done, and I can get someone to show it to me. I only have to be shown once. I'll come home and do it. I've always had. I don't know. I guess it's just natural that I can pick it up or something like that. But as far as being mechanical, I'm not.
Can you show me some of the different types of braiding that you've done here that's on the wall?
Yes. This set of bridle reins is all done just leather. They're made out of leather with the exception of the burners. But I've used the same technique on knots. They're not tied exactly the same, but the basic, yes, the base is all the same.
Which part is the burners?
Put the burners on the ends to keep them from wearing when they fasten them to a bit. That's rawhide and laced on with rawhide string. These are what you call a Rommel rein. These ends go to the bridle, and this hangs down over your leg as a quirt.
And what is a quirt?
Well, a quirt's something you use to ride, want to hit a horse with something, make him step up, or you use a quirt. Now this is the rawhide quirt that they use to ride with. Barrel races like those, I've made quite a few for these barrel racing girls, making a little shorter, about like that, with maybe just a sharp popper on the end, so that it makes a noise rather than hurts the horse. And you just stick them in their pockets, and then grab them and use the reins and the quirt at the same time if they want. And then we get this coming back to more leather reins. These are leather, made out of cowhide, but they have the rawhide knots tied on them. These are a pair that I had in the fair this year.
And did you win a prize on this?
Yes, I got a blue ribbon on those. I got a blue ribbon on the quirt I had in. It was a lot like this one. It wasn't this particular one I sold, but the one that I got the blue ribbon on, and I let the blue ribbon go with them. This is another pair that are made similar to this with different colored leather. Any more than they're braided different. Now, go back to this pair. That is a 6-pan braid.
Oh, I gotta come in close for a minute there.
That's a 6-strand braid. Ready to go on?
Mm-hmm.
And these are 8-strand. There's a little difference in the braid. This is over 2 and under 2. Each strand over 2 and under 2. This one is over 1 and under 1 all the way. And the quirt made out of is braided with an 8-strand braid. And this pair of rawhide Romels was in the fair this year. These are a very fine pair of reins, I think, and I have been told by everyone that's seen them. They like them real well, real good work. But they're 8-strand. They're braided over an 1/8-inch nylon cord, and then the knots are tied over on the outside.
Can you tell me the criteria they judge the fineness of the braiding?
Well, it's the consistency of being consistent. In other words, there's no misses. They look for misses. They look for mistakes. They look for double strings. They also look for straight braid. These, if you look at these reins, they have a set of chevrons as you look at them, and if they're straight, that is one thing that they really look at. This pair of reins is what we call an open end pair. They're just 2 straight reins with a button in the center. They're a little bit larger than these others, but somebody will want them someday.
And about how much do you charge for a set of reins?
It depends on how much work I've got into them. I have different prices. Cheaper reins, and I have more expensive, just to tell you on a video. These are running, these reins here, all these are running the range of $300 a pair. I've got about 45 hours up here into those, with all the knots and everything. Those knots take so long to tie, to get them accurate and get them straight. You don't tie those. That was particularly one was good 36 inches, 36 to 40 inches long to start with. This one would take about 48 to 55 inches. I'd sooner have cut off a foot and it'd be a ½ inch short when I go to do something like that. It's just something that you learn. You have to, when you cut your strings, you have to allow for your crosses and going around your center, because they'll braid up quite a bit. Your string, the farther you go, the shorter your strings get.
How would you estimate how the length of your strings before you start? What if you come up short?
Well, there is a way to get around that I won't say much about.
Is that a secret of the trade?
Yes. And you can always splice in, but I don't prefer to do that. A lot of this stuff is made, Mexican braiders will do it. They make a pair of reins like this. Instead of having this all continuous, they'll have 3 pieces. There'll be a piece here, and then these 2 here, and then they'll tie knots over the splices to cover the splice. I've done a lot of repair work on broken reins and such, and that is what you have to do if you got a pair of broken reins. You have to splice, but I never preferred splicing when I could do it all with 1 string.
And
cut my strings. Now these are some rawhide strings that I have sitting out here that I'm getting ready to do another job with. And it has to be have enough moisture in it. So you can see that's a little flexible. Have enough moisture in it to give it the leather consistency when you braid it. Now, these strings haven't been sized or skives to thickness. I had them wrapped up in a damp cloth for a couple of days, and it can't be too damp because they take on too much moisture and they get rubbery. If you braid with rawhide while it's wet, when it dries, you have a gap between your overlaps. So you have to have it about right consistency of moisture. And it can't be too thick or too stiff, too dry. It's like this, like a spring, won't give. You can't pull it down, you can't make it look decent.
Is that the form that the rawhide comes to you in?
That's the way I've been able to buy it. I used to make all my own, but I don't have the facility, I don't have the availability of hides like I used to. Being raised on the farm and ranch, we always had our beef cattle, beef hides that we throw out. We always having an animal die or something, and we'd skin them and save the hide. Of course, hides at that time was only worth about 50 cents a piece. It was worth a lot more than that to me. When I have to pay for a side like that has about 21 square feet in it, that side I bought 2 weeks ago, and it cost me $95, and that's a pretty high price. You put that much into a side of rawhide, and then have to cut it and and then braid it. And it takes 45 hours to braid something like that. Should get a lot of money for them, or you don't make it. You don't even make it expensive.
When you say 45 hours, are you also counting in the time it takes you to prepare your materials?
That's right. You have to. It takes putting there as much time to prepare material as it does to do the braiding. Other than when you get down, you can get the material cut and get the braiding done. And then when you start knots, that's when it costs you money, or that's when it takes the time.
And how do you prepare your materials, your leather or your rawhide, to get ready to braid?
Well, like I say, this is one way that I do rawhide. Now see, those are still damp on this end because they're thicker. They're getting dry up here. I just took them out of the rag a little while ago. I just dampened rag and rolled them up in it. It takes about 3 days to set the moisture to where you can handle it, especially with thicker hide. Now this is a little bit thicker hide, and it'll take more time to prepare that. And then after you get started to braid, you've got all your skiving to do on edging and skiving and trimming to do.
What is skiving?
Skiving is making them the same thickness all over. I run them through that little machine, and I can make them the same thickness no matter which part of the hide they come from, or part of the animal they come out of. See, the back side of a hide is always thicker than the flank and leg part, where it goes down and around the belly. That's the thinnest part, and that's also the most rubbery part. Before I can do anything with a hide, you have to go around and cut all that out, so that you don't have that rubbery, stretchy part. You can't use that. It doesn't make good product.
Because
It's something you don't learn overnight. It's something that takes a lot of time to do and a lot of preparation. But I do it because I always have liked it.
can you tell me about some of those other pieces you have up there between the reins?
For instance, these.
Oh, those, and also the bosal.
Oh, this here?
Yeah.
There's a bosal. This is a small bosal. I make all sizes. Depends on what a person would like. Bosal is can be used to ride with or use them to tie up with. Now this is just the Boselle alone, but there's a half-inch piece of leather goes up over the head, and it has put a buckle on the side of it so you can adjust it. And then to make up a hackamore, as they call them, tie a 1/4-inch rope around this, knot here and knot up here, and then the 2 strings go over the head, and the 2 strands go over the head and then back, and then tied on the side. And it has the loops down here where you can put a rope in. You use that to tie with or anything. But you can also use a Makati, rawhide Makati, or a horsehair Makati or something. You fasten them here and cinch them down where you need them to ride with, because they swivel on a horse's nose.
And what's the difference between using one of these or using a
bit?
Uh-huh.
Well, a bit goes in the mouth. It works on the mouth alone. This works on the nose and the jawbone. It's a little more, after you get a horse trained and broke to a hackamore, well, it's a different story, but you got a little more control with the bit. It depends on your horse and what you're going to use it for.
You have another real old one that's bigger up there that you made?
Yes, that's...
Can you show me that?
That was an old Bronco hackamore. But it's old and it needs a lot of refurbishing. This is what I'm talking about with the headstall. Now, we use this for big horses as well as saddle horses.
And did you make this one?
Yes, I made that when I was about 14 years old. Been around ever since, and it's still good. It's still flexible. It could still be used, but it's pretty rough. Pretty rough. There's my bridle that I always used that for a long time. That pair runs about 50 years old. They're still good. So that was tack, part of the tack we used to use also.
Was that one of the first ones you made?
Well, not one of the first, but it's up there. Up there. This pair of my spurs that I used for a long time. Later on, I got to where the last few years I made a few belts. This is a couple. I have one on that I made. Whether you can see it or not.
Uh-huh. And how'd you get into that?
Necessity. Couldn't buy what I wanted. As far as I'm concerned, the belts they make today, unless they're custom made, are too narrow. But I made those, hand sewed them. Of course, this one is just punched for a nub buckle. This was a buckle that I gave my dad when we first came down here. I sent it home to him.
And when was that?
He used that till he passed away a few years ago. He was 92 when he died. He's been dead 5 years. And of course, I got the buckle back, and I just put it on that belt.
Can you hold it up like this so I can see the leather part, the braiding part?
This way or that way?
That's good. You can see the design better that way. And can we see the other one too?
This buckle's one that my wife gave me for Christmas, the first Christmas we were in Arizona. That was in 1952 or 53.
And you've got some other items up here on the wall too. The bull whips you were showing me?
Yes, this is a bull whip that father had when I was just a kid. I remember when he bought that one. It is, it's a shot-loaded whip. This part is loaded with buckshot. And it's quite heavy. Of course, the end has been wore off years ago, and I put several tips on it. This is the last one that's gone on, and it hasn't been used, of course. It's just an heirloom, memorabilia, something old, something belonged to my father. And I kind of cherish those kind of things. It's just something that different people collect different things. I collect old items like that. This is another bullwhip that I have. This is one that I bought when I was a young guy, and I used it a long time. Used it quite a lot. Carried it on my saddle for years.
Did you add on to this one or restore it at any time?
Oh, I put half a dozen ends on that one. My grandkids got a hold of that one time, and they popped it down to that spot. Other than that, it was the same material on out within that much, and then there was always a buckskin end on it.
Let's see the end.
But this has been popped down in the last recently. See, it hasn't got much popper left on it.
Is that what makes the noise, the buckskin on the end?
Yes. Yes, that popper is what does the damage. I got another one here that belonged to my great-grandfather. But I don't suppose that makes any difference. It's just more memorabilia. I also tipped it out from there. He used to use this when he was driving a pair of mules on a milk wagon. And that's the old whip that he used. I found that much of it hanging in my dad's shed up there. I guess he must have picked it up after Granddad got rid of it, and I didn't take any notice. But I found it a few years ago, and I brought it home and added on to it, tipped it out. It's just another piece of memorabilia. Somebody has to save all this stuff. I guess I'm the one that is the pack rat.
You had another whip there, and that one's got an innovation to it.
You're talking about the nylon whip that I just finished braiding here not long ago.
Yeah.
Okay, this is, I saw the pattern of this a few years ago. I was up in Utah, and my nephew had just come back from Florida. He'd been down there as a buckaroo working on the ranch. And he had one. Brought one home, made like this, out of nylon. It's nylon parachute shrouds. And, I was messing around here a week or so ago, and I started cutting strings, and this is what I ended up with. That's a 12-strand braid.
I'm going to want to zoom in on that.
12-strand braid. You look at it, and it's only 2 over and 2 under. But you do that by, you got on each side as you braid, you have the six strands. So anyway, you take the outside or the inside strand, and you got to think this one out. I never forgot it. You go under 2, from under 2, over 2, and under 2 on each side. But it looks, that's the way you do it. Otherwise, you'd go 3-strand at a time. But it makes a more open braid by doing that way. This gives you a little tighter braid and a little, looks a little nicer.
Can you show us the handle? Did you make that?
Yes, I made that. I have a lathe. It's made out of lemon wood. I made my own handle. This one's only about 15 inches long. 14 and a half, 15 inches long. The one he brought from Florida had an 18-inch handle on it. I thought it was too long, so I cut this one down.
Now, why would you want to make a bullwhip out of nylon instead of leather or rawhide?
Oh, just because I saw that one.
And why were in that area were they making them out of nylon? Is that common?
It's too wet down there. It's so wet that leather rotted on them, and they would pop a whip to pieces in 6 months. Well, these will last them for several years. It's the boy that was making them was working there on the ranch, and he was making them for all the cowboys that was around. And I asked him, I said, "How much do you pay for that whip?" He says, "Well, he makes them all the time, $10 a foot." And I said, "Gee." He said, "Well, why don't you make one?" Well, this has been 3 or 4 years ago that I saw it. And I never got around to making one until now. I don't know whether I'll make any more or not. If somebody comes along and would like that one, I'll sell it to them, and I'll decide. This one's only about 13 feet long. The one he brought up from down there was 15 foot long.
And
it's so nice. It was balanced so well that you just go like that and go out there and pop like a shotgun.
this one you just made?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe after we're finished talking, you could show us how that works.
It has a nylon popper on it, and nylon will pop. You know, a lot better than a Luxembourg. I just left the nylon out for it to pop on.
And why is the popping part important?
Well, just the noise. Noise is lots better sometime than the hit.
Gets them moving.
Get them, make them move, you bet. They had a lot of Brahma cattle in that country, and the bulls get a little bit fractious once in a while, and he said you just pop that in the bull's face and he'll leave you alone. They get used to it. They know what it's all about after they hit a time or two. But that's just something I did just for fun.
And you've got some other items up there, those hat bands.
Yes, I make a few hat bands. This one here is what they call a ridge braid. That's a 10-strand braid. You do it all at the same time. The outside ridge, and then the inside. It's flat on the back side, but it's rounded on the front side. It's 10-strand. There isn't too many of those around. I don't know who else has ever made any besides me. Well, I do too. I know one guy that made one. He wears it on his hat all the time. I have this one and this one on hand today. That's all.
Can we pause for 1 second?
You bet.
All right. We were talking about your hat bands up there, and you showed us the first one on the rack.
Yes. This one's made double braid. But these is only four-strand braids. But I have the horsehair. They're all put in the same way, and I used the silver ferrule with a stone on it. Decorate that one with. Now this one is just a single braid, 4-strand, with what we call a long knot, what I call a long knot, braided on it as a slide. Well, this one has the same knot. See, they're all adjustable. All you have to do is pull them through. They'll fit any size hat. This one was a two-tone that I made. That was in the fair.
Did you win a prize on that
A
one?
year ago. That was a blue ribbon. These are made out of a flat rawhide braid. That's a 6-strand braid. They've also got hair. I mix many different styles, and ordinarily I might have a dozen or so of them made at a time, but that's all I have on hand right now. Well, I have this one. here and another one on my other hat in the house.
And how do you come up with your designs, or choosing your materials, or?
Just out in the clear blue. not being traditional. Want something different. Or take an idea, well, maybe somebody'd like one like this, somebody'd like one like that. But I find that they go back to the plain ones. They want more dainty stuff, plainer. Get a lot of oohs and ahs out of something like that, but nobody wants to buy it. It's too gutty, and it is for me. I wouldn't wear it myself. I prefer either the brown or the black, or even a double. I've got several doubles that I have had that I have worn on my hat, and then somebody wanted them, I sell them right off my hat. It doesn't make any difference. I'll make another one.
It's kind of like the shirt off your back.
Well, not quite. I'm yet to have sold a shirt off my back.
So what would...
A guy said to me one time, you got anything you wouldn't sell? And I said, yes. I wouldn't sell my wife or my kid. Anything else I've got a price on it.
You've also done some kind of innovative work there. You were telling me about those ladies' belts in the back there.
These are made for I braided them up for a Indian boy that is a silversmith. He works out of Scottsdale. Now he takes those, tells me how he wants them braided, and he'll put silver on them. He'll put a silver fastener about so here, and it'll be adjustable. You can slip it wherever he wants it. Makes ladies' belts out of them. The ladies go crazy over them. And then he puts silver on them, different spots, and silver around here with conchas on them and such. And he sells a lot of them. Sells quite a few. Goes to all the national shows. He just came back not too awful long ago from Santa Fe. He was in New York City at the World Trade Center just before the bombing. They had a big show back there, and he was back there just before they bombed the Trade Center.
I'm also...
You see, he's getting a little of my work all over the country. Of course, I have a lot of work all over the country too. I have stuff. Some of my stuff has gone to Florida. It's gone to Montana, gone to Colorado. In fact, I have a saddle maker in Boulder, Colorado, right now that has, I think 8 or 10 pieces of my stuff. I have another one in Boise, or in Rigby, Idaho, that has a saddle shop that I have a bunch of stuff in right now. I sold one rancher in Colorado has 5 pair of my reins. 3 pair are alike, and the other 2 are rawhide.
Can you tell me the difference between rawhide and leather, and why you would want one over the other, and the differences in working with both of those materials?
The leather, you can braid 4 inches or 4 feet, and throw it down and come back to it in 2 or 3 days, and it hasn't moved, it hasn't changed. You don't do that with rawhide. Once you get it conditioned and in the shape to where you can work with it, you've got to keep it that way, or you'll see it every time you drop it and start again. It'll show in the braid.
So you have to
keep the same consistency all the time. You have to do that with moisture. With leather, you don't. It's just braided. It's tanned. Leather is tanned. Rawhide is just what it says. It's a rawhide. It has no tanning to it. All they've done with that is take the hair off of it. And they do it today. They take the hair off today with acid, which I don't prefer, but that's the only way I can get it. If I was going to do it myself, I'd take the hair off a lime, and it will make your rawhide a little more pliable.
Lime?
in a barrel, wet, you know, the lime solution. But you have to keep it moving in for it to settle. You have to stir it, and it takes about a week to loosen the hair, but it'll come off, slip.
So you're saying if you start working on a set of reins or a rawhide quirt, you've got to do it all in one sitting?
Either that or cover the whole thing with a damp cloth to bring it back to where you want it, and wrap it up so it doesn't dry out or get too wet.
And
I've done that sometimes where I can, and put them in after I put the damp rag around them to season them back just for maybe an hour or so, just enough to bring it back to where you can handle it. And I wrap it in a garbage bag. Throw it in a garbage bag so it doesn't get any air, and it will heat. Everything that evaporates will stay with you.
is it hard to do in the summertime here?
Oh, terrible in the summertime. And you got another factor. It gets hot. The rawhide will get wet rawhide. If it's kept wet and it gets hot, it will rot on you, or else it'll mildew. This is a little damp piece of cloth that I had those strings rolled up in, and it is still too damp. Right? It was too damp this morning when I took it out. Of course, I had it laying. I folded it up. I just shoved them in this little bag. If it hasn't any holes in it, it doesn't leak. But it sure holds the moisture.
I also notice you have a lot of blue and ribbons and all kinds of awards here up on your wall.
Yes, I've got a few. They run back for several years. Maricopa State, or Arizona State Fair, Maricopa County Fair, State Fair, Maricopa County, State Fair. Then I had some up here so far this year's. I had 4 blue and 2 red this year.
Are there a lot of rawhide braiders working around here now, or?
Very few in this area that I know of. In fact, I'd be put to tell you of one that I really know right now. I really don't know who braids rawhide. I belong to the National Rawhide Braiders Association, and they've got quite a list in there.
About how many?
Oh, I don't know, maybe. Well, they've got a list of members, let's put it this way. And the members, some of them belong to horsehair, or do horsehair. Quite a few of them.
Have you ever done that?
No, that's beyond me. Skip Halverson, he lives up here on the east side of town. He's a horsehair man. He does a lot of good stuff. And I have done braiding for him, where he was braiding rawhide stuff, where he was making a horsehair headstall for a bridle. He came to me one time and I braided him a pair of rawhide reins to go with it. He didn't want to braid the rawhide or the horsehair reins for it. Anyway, about the best braiding pieces that I ever got a hold of came from Brazil, or Peru, I should say. These Peruvian peso people, there's several of them in the valley, and they buy the original stuff to show, so they have original equipment with the horses that they show. And every once in a while they'll get something broke, and I have done repair work on it. But it is so beautiful, and so such poor quality. It's shameful. I had not too long ago, I had a lady come in with a bridle, and her horse had broken the headstall. And it was a 32-strand braid. The strands of that rawhide on that thing was not 1/8 of an inch wide. And inside of it was nothing but paper, rolled paper. There's no way that I could put it back together for her and make it stay.
What do you use on the inside?
I'd use nylon rope on anything of any value.
I'm looking right there on your, the top of the,
Oh, you mean these knots?
yeah, that one you can see what the inside looks like. There's one piece there.
These are, these knots here are what they call a herringbone knot. They're tied over a piece of leather wrapped on that. I'll show you what I mean. There's one that I got started. You take a piece of leather, I tied a knot over that one, like that, and tie that herringbone over top of it. Now, this one is tied on that dowel just for a display. But I have tied those to fit the object that I was going to put them on, like a bolo tie, and use those as a slide on a bolo tie. It wouldn't be quite that big around, and they'd be more oblong to fit two strands. But they do make a pretty bolo tie. But that's the herringbone knot. That's a 6-bite knot. When I talk about knot bites, I'm talking about the number of pieces that come around the piece that you're tying on. So there's 6 of them. That's what these 4 are. Now this is a 4-bite round knot. That's the foundation. It's only 1, 2, 3, 4. Turn back. Now to make that knot double with the 2-tone in it, you can make it 2-tone or straight, and it's all interwoven through there, and another string put in. Takes a lot of time, a lot of leather to do something like that. This is a knot that was tied. That's what they call a long knot. That's tied to the rawhide. Lady broke her bridle reins and came in. I had to cut that much off and tie another loop back in here, like this was.
That one you can see the inside foundation that you're braiding around.
Yeah, this is nylon parachute shroud in the center of that. It shouldn't have broken, but I don't know. Must have had something pretty sharp in it. To cut it, just cut it right off.
And are these the tools that you use up there on the wall?
Yes. There's a lot of tools I use, but to braid with, I don't use a lot of different tools. I use a fid to open up, like if I was going to braid, add to that, I'd open that, that's where the next string would go. Use it for that to open up the hole and poke the string through. And pair of pliers, might have something you want to pull through, and then a little knife. This I wouldn't do without. If I didn't have that, I don't know what to do. That's used for most everything. If I want to put a needle on a piece of string like that, that's what it's used for. Peel the string down. I use a eye needle, 1-prong needle. Lace it through and turn it. Put it up underneath, and there's a prong on that needle. It goes through. Makes it a lot easier to push that needle through than to push the string through. You don't have that much grip. This eliminates a lot of your fid problem. You do this. Pull it in. Of course, I wouldn't use that string to do that particular knot with. to fill in this one because this is just a sample that I have around. But that is the way that it's done and the tools that I use.
I've noticed that
This is the first cutting tool that I think well, not the first, but it's old. I take my pocket knife and put it in, take this and put it on a piece of leather or rawhide, stick it over, take my knife blade and put in there, and I can, by pressure, where I cut the width that I want, and then just fasten that into a vise or something and walk backwards and cut my string. That one particularly one has cut many thousands of feet of rawhide.
what was that made out of?
Broom handle. Broom handle. And then take a saw and saw a slot in it, a little slot here. This slot at one time was not deep like that. It was out here. And you can see how long I used it. It's got clear down that far. Every time I use it, I cut a little more out of it. So it's been used a long time. That has been used quite a long time. This is quite a bit narrower. This is a little wider.
So you cut those are your choices for how wide
Yeah.
your leather or your rawhide is going to be?
That's right.
And why is that important to
If your strings are not even and straight like this one, your work will be just like that. It'll be a thin spot and a bigger spot. And that's why I skive them to the same thickness also. This is about the most important thing in the world, is to get your strings even width and even thickness. You can put up a little variation, you can hide a little of it, but not a lot.
So how would you get the width even with that other tool, or what would you do?
Well, this is the only thing I used to have. Today I have a little string cutter, evener, that I use. Now this is adjustable. It has a little slot here. I can move that blade back and forth on that to make my strings any width I want. And it's got a set screw in the bottom, and
I'm going to move over here.
Set screw to tighten it up so it don't move, and I just push that down through there and draw it across. It'll cut any width you want. See, I cut that much out. See the difference in the width of that string? But it's even. It's even all the way. And then if I want another deal with the machine is the fact that you can make your leather any thickness you want. This is spring loaded, and this slot in here starts from nothing and turn it any way you want, any thickness you want to cut. See, you can cut strings as thin as paper with that. Because a lot of your other stuff is sharp blades. This is a mistake that a lot of people don't think about. If you don't have a sharp blade, you don't do anything. My tools, I try to keep them sharper than the razor. I could shave most any knife that I have. But that's the only way I can get anything right. And that is the secret to braiding.
I was going to ask you one other thing about your tools there. A lot of them you've covered with leather.
Yes, makes them a lot easier to get hold of. You have a better feel to the hand. My fids, I've covered those. It's just with short pieces that I had laying around, add them in, braid them out, cover them up. But once you cover tools, you don't want to use a bare handle one anymore. It doesn't feel good. But I've covered a few of them. That knife was covered. This head knife was covered. I also covered the handle to my maul. It just gives me a better grip. Just feels better.
What do you use that maul for?
Well, that's quite heavy, and I use that to punch holes and such. It's rawhide. It doesn't bang the end down. If you use a hammer, first thing you know, you got a mushroom up here on top. Pieces of that metal fly off and hit you in the eye or something you wish you hadn't. I know because I've had a few pieces of steel in my eye. In fact, I was to the optometrist just the other day to get a piece out that I had been sharpening a shovel and got a little piece of steel in my eye. I had to go get it taken out. But it's all in a day's work, I guess.
You were telling me there was a time when you weren't doing this for a while.
Yes, but I'd say 35 years I didn't do any of this. I was too busy on my job. I was working for Clover Club, and I had the responsibility of this factory down here. I had 60 employees, and I did all the, well, in other words, it was up to me. And so I didn't have any time to, I didn't take the time to do any of this. But after I had my heart attack, I'd retired, and then I had a heart attack. Couldn't do anything else, so I went back to braiding. But it's something you never quit learning. You're always learning. Always.
Was it easy to remember after 35 years of not doing it, or did it take a while to get back?
It took me a little bit. I guess it was the fact that at the time I started to do it again, I was a little bit nervous, like, and I wanted to hurry too fast. After I got settled down to where I could take my time and finally got the idea that it didn't have to be done today. It could wait. I've got jobbers waiting around here that's been waiting for 10 years, and I haven't got back to them yet. It's been about 10 years since I had my heart operation, implants. So it's something that I just have taken a lot of time with. If I start something, I'm not in any hurry. It might take me 3 weeks to do something that I could do in just, 20 hours, 20, 30, 40 hours or something like that. But I can do a few hours here and a few hours there. Well, that's all right. I got time.
Is it a kind of relaxing thing to do? What is it that
No,
satisfying about it?
just the fact of what you come out with. I never start to make anything that I haven't studied out in my mind and visualized it. I know how it's going to look when it's through. Very often or very seldom do I ever change something that I have in my mind when I start. That's the way it's going to be finished. If somebody wants something special, fine, I'll do it. I'll do it to their specifications. Whether I like it or not, that's beside the point. But I never start a project until I've got it all figured out in my mind, just exactly how it's going to go, and what width every piece of string is going to be, how many knots is going to be on them, how they're going to be done. And then I go ahead and start it. But it has to be up here first. I just don't do it. To pick something up and start out on making something without any game plan, I can't do it. I don't work that way.
Is there anything else that you can think of that we didn't talk about that I should know to
Well-
understand more about this?
There might be a lot of things I think of tomorrow.
I was going to ask, oh, what were you going to say? Oh, I was going to ask if you could demonstrate using one of those bullwhips out in your yard.
Yes, I could show you how they pop.
All right.
Which one do you want me to do? The leather one or the...
Your favorite, whatever one you like.
Well, I like the leather one best because I've just made that one. I'm not used to it. Like anything else, you have to get used to it. It's like tools. You learn how to use a tool before you use it. Pop right in front of it. Pop it out. Wet. Pop the end up.
Oh, it popped off?
Sorry, I can't pop it.
Well, we got the idea there. Oh, look, it just broke right off.
Can't pop the end right off of it. It's got to have a new one on it.
Got it. Then you'll just put a popper on.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much. This is the end of the interview. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.